Thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast series, where we profile those who have overcome or those who are in the process of overcoming any life topic. We have three objectives with this podcast series. Our first objective is we want you to know that whatever you're experiencing in life, whatever you're encountering, you're not alone. We want to join you to let you know that we together can help you through whatever challenge you may have that at the time may seem too difficult to be able to overcome. Our second objective is to help you determine with a very confident resolve there are multiple solutions, multiple factors involved in any life encounter. It's a matter of thinking into and thinking through the life situation you are encountering to determine the various options, the various solutions that are available to you. Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If whatever you're experiencing is a result of a decision you made sometime in the past, such that if you had a life redo, you would make a different decision, we want to help you determine the objective facts and factors to evaluate to help you reach a more informed decision. I'm Ron Cooper, founder of the Cooper Culture. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty. Together, we are the Cooper Culture, and the Cooper Culture is sponsoring this podcast series. Today, we feature ReGina Smithwick, who chronicles a part of her life beginning with adoption and how she worked through some feelings of inferiority, low confidence, and so forth. She was actually about 50 years old when she reckoned with that part of her life and got a lot of help with a life coach. Marty, what are some takeaways our listeners can gain from this podcast?
Ron, ReGina had a lot of good information on this podcast. She went through the feeling of abandonment. She talks about adoption, talks about purpose, but she also talks about having a breakdown. Through her breakdown, she wouldn't be able to have a breakthrough. And so she said, if needed, she'd go through another breakdown because of what comes out through that breakthrough is better for your life.
Let's listen and learn together. It's a great life story. ReGina, thank you so much for joining us. You are right at the heart of what our podcast, Overcomers Overcoming, is about. You have overcome a lot of life experiences, adoption, feeling somewhat abandoned, and recovering from that. Welcome. It's going to be real good to hear your story. If you would, for our listeners, could you just give somewhat of a top level of what your past has been? And then our focus is going to be how you overcame some of the topics of the past.
Sure. Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on your show. I do appreciate the time. My story basically started with a beautiful Saturday afternoon. I was actually going on a date that day. By the time I got through the date, got home, got rejected from the date, I actually had a mental breakdown. My mental breakdown, I didn't realize, I thought it was just being rejected, but the rejection has been since I was 7 years old, because I found out I was adopted around 7, but I was adopted as a baby. And I realized that all of this was suppressed because I kept it a secret, because a lot of people I knew treated adoption as something bad. So when I thought it was something bad as a child, I made a child decision and I decided to hold it in because I didn't want them to use that against me, because children are cruel. So I didn't want that used against me and used against my parents. So I decided to keep it as a secret. And I took a child decision and I kept it going for another 40 something years until I turned 50. And when I had my breakdown, I went to a spiritual life coach and we kind of worked through some stuff. And come to behold, my problem stemmed from that day of finding out, because when you lie to yourself, you're not loving yourself. Because if I feel something's wrong with me, I'm not loving myself enough. So I decided at that day, I didn't love myself to be who I was and be proud of who I am. Because I had no choice in this. I didn't have no choice in being adopted. So why did I take it on like it's something I did wrong? So that's where all that stemmed from, until I uncovered all the insecurities, the validation issues, the abandonment issues, and all that kind of bubbled up in my therapy, in my help.
Thank you for sharing that, ReGina. Marty and I and many of our listeners are faith-based. Let's just share how faith became what sounds like a real major part of your recovery. But can you describe to us what you felt rejected, and that led to a mental breakdown. Can you describe just a little bit of just what that mental breakdown was, just so that our listeners can identify with you?
Right. It was a feeling I never felt before. We all been upset and cried and everything. I mean, we all been through something. But that felt like I felt so depleted and defeated. I felt like I was not worth, and I felt that I was not living in my purpose. I felt I was not living up to God's purpose. I was just, what really brought it to a head that day is when I let somebody who I barely knew shift my emotions. If you love yourself, you don't let nobody shift you enough to make you feel that bad about yourself, because of course, everybody's not gonna like you. And that's okay, but it shouldn't affect you in the way it affected me. And that what made me decide that something's not right with me and I need to get help. So that's where the help came in, is when I realized that I was letting somebody else dictate who I was. And I started believing them, obviously, because I was really going through a lot that day. And I could not stop crying. I was hyperventilating in the whole shebang because I felt so bad. And I said, well, I'm feeling bad. That's when I said I had to get help. And so the faith was, I had asked God, I was on my knees that night, and I said, God, I just don't feel right. Something's not right with me. I need help. I need to find my purpose in life. I felt like I felt like I was just floating around here, and I just didn't know what I was supposed to be doing here. And I believe that God gives all of us, as long as we breathing, we all have purpose. We're here for a reason. And I believe that we're here to help other people. So when I went through, I knew that this story is not about me. It's about me helping others. When you go through a test and then you get a testimony from your test, it's for your job to go out there and serve and to help others with this, because you're not the only one going through this. And I found that out after writing my book, that I had so many people coming to me saying, I'm adopted, I didn't tell nobody. Or I'm adopted, I want to find my birth parents, but I'm scared. Or I think that my adopted parents are going to feel bad if I try to find my birth parents. So it's a lot of stuff going on with this adoption thing that I realized that we do need a platform, and we do need to discuss this and stop being so secretive with it. I thought I was the only one doing that, but no, there's a lot of us out there who are hiding it because we think something's wrong. So that's where all that stemmed from, my faith base on that.
ReGina, there are a lot of people who are masking different things, hiding behind, because there are a lot of different reasons. I am learning we may not know who we can talk with in a safe space to be a safe person type thing. We may have very low confidence. I'm expressing my life, early life. I didn't have the confidence that I could express myself. So I just held a lot of things in. And it was 4 men who were very instrumental in my life that offered me a safe space. And they, while not formally mentoring me, they each met a need I had. I'm curious, ReGina, were there, and I do want to focus on the faith-based part of this, how God worked in your life. Were there people that maybe God led you to that helped you through what appeared to be 40 years or so of maybe a low self-image, low confidence?
Yes, my spiritual life coach, her name is Reverend Melissa. She is, of course, a reverend, a woman of God, and she does life coaching, spiritual life coaching. And she tremendously helped me. She changed my life because she actually had me to kind of strip it down to the core. I had to read a book called The 30-Day Mental Diet. I don't know if you ever heard of that book or not. It's a beautiful book, and it basically tells you where you at in this universe, how important each one of us are to this universe that we live in. And it basically tells you how God sees all of us as his children, and we all have a purpose. And so when I kind of started questioning my belief systems, and I started to question the way I processed and the way I did things, and I realized how important I am. I am so important. We all are. When I realized that, my whole mindset shift, and then I was able to go, okay, I know what I want to do. And I thought about everything that I'm good at, and I thought of everything that I have a gift with. You know, God gives us these gifts, and I have always had them, but I just never tapped into them. So doing my podcast, writing my books, being a life coach now I'm a life coach as well, because she influenced me so much. And I was like, I love the fact how I felt when I was finished with her program, that I wanted others to have that feeling. So I became a life coach. And then I had my podcast. So all of this I did in only 1 year. 1 year, I did all of that in 1 year, because I realized my purpose was. And when I realized that, everything fell right into line. Everything fell into line. And God's always been in my life, but now God is so present that I do nothing without him. I always make sure I honor him. My show I never say it's a Christian-based show, but it really is, because we pray before we start every show, and we always mention scripture and God in our shows, because I want you to know the person, this man, the spirit of God really changed me. I don't want to hide it. And I always tell them, you know, my show's going to stay this way. I don't care what the world is doing, because I know what he done for me. And I'm not going to let that deter or change anything in my show. And that's how deep I am with this. And I do believe we all have times in our lives that we do things. You know, we're not all going to do things in 20s and our 30s and our 40s. I am now 51, going on 52 years old. And I just really awakened last year. I mean, really awakened to a point that I'm knowledgeable. I know my purpose. I never felt this way in my life before. And I know that the timing is divine ordered. And I know this time is mine, and I'm ready to do what he asked me to do.
What is the name of your book, ReGina? We want to promote that to our listeners.
Oh, thank you. It's called Adoption, the Unknown Blessing.
Great.
And it's on Amazon.
Have you encountered other children, people who have been adopted, who are going through something similar to what you have overcome?
Yes, and it's funny because I did a show on my podcast called Adoption No Longer a Secret. I had 2 other ladies who've been adopted at birth as well. And we all found out we had so much in common. We all have been divorced. We all have abandonment issues. We all have self-esteem issues. We all had men issues. And we realized that it all stems from, because you don't talk about it, but it doesn't matter. Your body interprets it. The thoughts turn into things. You don't have to say things out loud for things not to manifest. Like if you think of something, it's in your head, your body and your mind is going to react to it. So even though we never talked about our stuff out loud to people, it's still manifested in our spirits for us to have these issues. So when I started talking to other adopted people, we all had similar traits. And I just like, okay, and we had a question on the show that it really resonated with me. You know, when you have birth, the doctors tell you, put the headsets on your baby, on your tummy, right? Play Mozart, play music, play classical music so your baby could feel that, and then it calms them. It makes them talk to your baby. Make sure your baby's talked to so they can know your voice. So imagine us dealing with teenager parents who are confused. They don't know what to do. They're going through stress. You don't know if they arguing every day. You don't know what they're going through. Obviously, they're going through a lot if they got to give us away. You know what I'm saying? If they have to place us in another family, these parents are stressed. So imagine that. So if you do it the opposite, we didn't get that. We got the stress. So that could affect us internally, and we don't really realize that it affected us before we even came out the womb. Because our mothers were probably, from us 3, our mothers were teenagers. They were young, you know, and they had to make a big decision to unconditionally love us enough to place us somewhere else and never see us again. That's stressful for anyone. I'm a mother, so I know that's stressful. So we got to understand that we started off on that note, and we wasn't even born yet. So that stuff does be part of your DNA, is part of you. Just like the positive stuff is, what they tell you to do is the same way on the negative side. You can't get away from it. So I know that affected us somehow in our lives. That affected all of us. So I did learn that.
It sounds like, ReGina, you were saying about God, you knew about God for some number of years, maybe 40 years or so in your life, but you had never surrendered to God, perhaps. I'm trying to determine how your relationship was with God before you got to know God real well. Have I described what your life was before you knew God as you do now?
I always knew God. God's always been in my life. I was raised in church. My grandmother's a Pentecostal pastor. I always had God in my life. So God's always been there. But as in fully trusting the process, fully trusting the outcome, and fully trusting Him, that's where I grew in. That's why Christianity I am now growing in, is understanding, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 is like my favorite scripture, not lean on your understanding, but trust in God, and He will definitely straighten your crooked path. I never let Him complete anything because I would jump in and try to take over and do everything. I was always trying to get the outcome. And I had to understand, let Him do His job. He don't need you. He doesn't need you. Just sit back. He knows your heart's content. He knows your desires. You pray. You got to trust the process. And sometimes it's not going to go the way you think it's going to go, but it is going the way it's supposed to go. Anything that's done to you is not done to you, it's done for you. And I had to understand that. So since this whole process happened since September of 2019, I surrendered to Him to let Him handle everything. And I just noticed that my life has been so much peaceful. And I had to let go of some people. I had to let go of some situations. I had to let go of some responsibilities. But at the end of the day, I understand the process now. I get it. So God's been there, but I never let Him fully be there to trust Him all the way through.
Who comes to mind? A person who may feel abandoned, not necessarily because of adoption, could be any number of things. They feel isolated, they're not connected with. These people may have doubts about themselves. They may be uncertain of their value, their worth. There may be things about them that have touched them from the past. They don't have confidence, but they just feel isolated. Who comes to mind? Is that you, possibly? If it is, I want to encourage you to seek help. Reach out to somebody who represents a safe person, safe space. If you know of someone who fits that profile, I want to encourage you to reach out to them. People need and want connected relationships. We function best that way. When we are in a period of feeling isolated, we are uncertain of our worth. We're just uncertain of who might, if anybody, accept us. That's not where we function best for God's designed potential for each one of us. Let's reach out. Let's be proactive. Reach out to people who need connected relationships, and let's be that person of hope. I'm very curious for our listeners, when you say you had to let go, is there an aspect of forgiveness? Apostle Paul uses the term reckon. Was there a part of your recovery, your overcoming, ReGina, reckoning with perhaps a series of events, a series of things that had occurred in your life that you reckoned with and maybe sought forgiveness for maybe feeling the way you did, even though perhaps you were violated? I don't want to try to suppose what did not happen in your life, but our listeners are very curious about that aspect of your life.
I never was violated. I never had that issue. It was more of less, that's not really loving myself fully enough to appreciate me. When you don't really love yourself, you let things in as those validations and those low self-esteems and being a people pleaser that I was. I always want everybody to be my friend. I always wanted to make sure everybody likes me. Running from yourself and hiding from yourself, you got to make yourself look a certain way. When you realize that you're good enough, you're good enough. You don't have to do all that. And if they don't like you, that's so be it. They're not supposed to be in your life. And when I accepted that, I let everything just fall. And I let everything just fall in place. And I just don't try to consume myself and trying to make sure you're good and make sure you're good and make sure, doing stuff with people who don't really care about what goes on with me. And because it's me, I'm the one that's trying to be a people pleaser. I can't blame nobody else. I got to take responsibility for what I did. And in the interim of doing that, I learned things and now I understand. I had a beautiful life. Like my parents, I had everything. I'm the only child. I didn't have, I had a beautiful upbringing. I had a beautiful home. I went to college. I have a master's degree. I have my own house. I have, it's paid off. I have a great life. Life is not bad, but it's me who need to face who I am. And that's the thing. I didn't face who I was. I am adopted. My name is ReGina Smithwick and I am adopted. It took me till 50 years old to say that out loud. I never discussed it. I never talked about it because I just thought it was something that somebody was going to use against me. But now I could tell you, I am adopted and I'm happy and I have my birth family and I have my adopted family. And I'm just ecstatic that I have my dad in my life, birth dad. I didn't think in a million years I'll meet somebody that looks like me. I have family, my brothers and sisters, we look alike. It's a good feeling to know your mannerisms, to know who you are, to know, I walk like my sister, we look alike. Those things that a lot of people have for birthrights, they take it for granted because they just have it. You know who your siblings are, you know who your parents are. It's just common nature. But for a person that's adopted, we don't know that. For example, I had an issue just last month. I had to go to the hospital for my colon. I had a colon issue. Come to find out, my grandfather on my mother's side had colon issues. I didn't know that until just literally 2 months ago because I asked questions. I didn't have that ability. When I go to the doctor asks me questions about me. I can just tell him I'm adopted. I don't know. I don't have I don't know nothing. So now I at least have history I can go back and know. See, simple things like that we take for granted, adopted kids don't have. So I always tell people, you have to give us some grace. And when we meet our birth family, that's a whole nother sector of this adoption thing, whole nother sector. Because now you get to know people that you're supposed to know already. I met my dad for the first time 2 years ago at 50 years old. And I don't know this man. I look like him, we look like, but I don't know him. So now I got to learn how to, and it's weird because it's like, hi, I'm your father. Hi, I'm your daughter. And we don't know each other. It's just weird. Right now, we're in a great place right now. We learning each other. We talk on a daily basis. We grown to love each other. Can't see my life without him now. So I'm just happy that everything worked out.
What I'm hearing from what you're saying, there was an awareness on your part that you need to stop feeling the way you do and stop thinking the way you do. And I certainly don't want to try to say things that you did not feel. Mm-hmm. What I'm leading up to is for the listener who is going through something very similar to what you have been through, mm-hmm. It's a call to action. Mm-hmm. Describe to us what the start of your recovery was. Did your life coach come to you? Did you go to her? How did that come about?
No, I went to her the next day after I finished crying almost all night. I called her up the next day, and because I already knew about her because she helped somebody else I knew. So I already had her number already. So I called up, I told her what happened, and we just started working. Like the next week, we started a program. I read the 30-day mental diet first, and then there was other books I read. We talked about God and how God works and how all of this comes together and how I need to evaluate and my belief systems. A lot of times, and I don't talk for me, but I know we're born into other people's belief systems. We're born into other people's ways. We don't have a say in that. When we're born, our parents kind of put themselves in us, and that's what they're going to do. They are parents. But when you get older, and sometimes you got to start thinking and question, okay, why do I do certain things? Or why do I do this? Or why do I say this? Is because I want it or because it's something I was just taught? And then it made me awaken to realize that everything you do, you need to figure out why you're doing it. Just don't do stuff on autopilot. Just don't go through life just doing things and not knowing why you do stuff. And I just started questioning things. She kind of opened the door for that, because I never thought of things a certain way until I started reading. I started reading a lot of books. I started listening to a lot of podcasts. I started listening to a lot of books online, audibles. And I really started thinking, honestly, thinking. I think sometimes in life we just do. We just go to work, we come home, we take care of the kids. We don't really sit down and think about nothing. We just do. And I actually sat down for a year and just read and educated myself on personalities and why we do certain things. And so she was the gateway to open my mind. Now, the thing about opening your mind, though, you got to be ready to receive. I could tell you anything. I could tell you the golden ticket, but if you're not ready to receive it, it's going to go right over your head. A lot of times you have to get to a breakdown to go to your breakthrough. Everybody's breakdown could be different. You don't have to, somebody can just get an aha moment and they feel like they want to change their lives or whatever the case is. You have to sometimes get to your low or your breakdown to be able to open up to receive to get your breakthrough. And so that's what happened with me. I got to a point, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I said I would try anything to change how I feel about myself. And then all of it came and fell into line, divine order. Everything just fell into line.
One of the things that you've mentioned almost in passing, but I suspect it's a very large aspect of your life, is purpose. You have defined, I believe you have definitely realized you have a vision of your purpose in life. And ReGina, there are a lot of people who do not have that defined purpose. They too are going day to day, hour to hour, going through whatever happens. I do, as I think you have very well articulated, when you have defined your purpose, you have a whole new sense of life and so forth. ReGina, if I have even come close to a little bit describing a part of your life, I think another episode that would be good to hear from you. How do you determine a purpose? And then maybe with just a little bit of time remaining, how long did it take you to realize your life purpose?
It didn't take long. It didn't take long because when I did I call it doing your work. When I did my work, things I had to do, my homework assignments and things I had to do was to find out, what do you like to do? What is your thing? What makes you smile? What you could do at night, in the morning, in the evening, and go to bed and wake up the next morning and want to do it again? What are the things that make you happy? And I always remember Kathy Lee Gifford. I love her. One of the things she said to me on the show, she was talking on the show, and it resonated with me. I would say she said it to me. She said her father told her, find something that you love to do and then find a way to get paid to do it, and you'll never work a day in your life. And that always stick with me. She said this for years on Regis. She said it's on years on the Today Show. And it always stayed with me, but I never really thought about it until I started understanding the purpose. When you have that purpose, you always doing something that you love to do. It is not a job, it's a purpose, it's a difference. I would always tell people, you driving a car, you got to take your wheel and steer your car. You can't just let it just go on, on autopilot. You just can't let it go on, you got to put your hands on the wheel and steer your car. And a lot of us are not steering our car. We just kind of just letting it go. And I always tell my daughter that too, like, you got to steer your car, because if you don't, it's going to go anyway. It's going to go all over the place. And you'll be riding up and down the highway and not have no direction. You have to have direction.
Is there an aspect, ReGina, of knowing your spiritual gifts, your talents, your strengths, and becoming aware of all of that and harnessing, so to speak, all of that to live a life purpose?
Yes, yeah, it really does. What I'm doing, and like what you're doing, It's a purpose. You're educating your audience. You're bringing people up here to help them think about things. You just want people to ponder. You want people to think. And you make them think by bringing people on like me and other people that sometimes they think they by themselves and they realize they not. It kind of makes them go, well, they could do it, I can do it. If she could, she was adopted, I was adopted. Oh, I never thought of it that way. Maybe that is the case. So when you kind of make people think outside of their box, that's the thing. You got to think outside of what you always do. And these type of things, what you're doing is what people need to know. That you can too live that life of purpose. You could live a life that you love every day when you wake up. It's there. We all have it. We were born with it. But like you were saying, a lot of people never really tap into it because of fear, because of our belief systems and what we were taught. And a lot of times we were taught, if you have parents or people in your life that said, well, you need to just go to work, you just clock that clock and you come home and you just, because that's what they're used to. But it doesn't mean that's your destiny or that's what you're supposed to do. If you don't have anyone around you or somebody that you could use as a mentor to show you that, if you're not happy, tap into something, figure out what makes you tick and go with it. But you need people like us to kind of, they don't have mentors, they use things like these platforms to listen to people that's up, somewhere near where they're at and they need this. So I would say to people, just do it. Don't be scared, whatever it is, just do it. And I did it. It was so worth it. The breakdown was so worth it compared to what I have right now. I would do it again because I know it's what's going to happen. I'm really, really happy right now.
For the listener who feels they're not driving with the hands on the wheels, to use your analogy, they're just going day to day, taking whatever happens, going in whatever direction they go. Is there a simple call to action, ReGina, you would recommend this person take? You don't need to continue life as you are, but that person will say, I'm not sure what the first step should be. Can you help that person with a call to action?
The call to action would be the first, know who you are. Figure out who you are first. If I ask you who you are and it takes you more than 10 seconds to tell me, we got a problem. You got to know who you are. I didn't, because a lot of times I ask that question, they'll say, well, I'm a lawyer. I'm a business person. No, I didn't ask you your job. I asked you who you are. If you define yourself by your job, then you don't know who you are. And that's the first step to do anything. So I would say your call to action is ask you that question first, who are you? And if you take more than 10 seconds to say to yourself who you are, then you need to really evaluate and figure out who you are first. And then you'll start loving yourself more and then everything will just fall into line.
I like that. You are a very resolved person, and I sense, ReGina, that is maybe not the way you have been all of your life, but you certainly are now. And that's what we like about it. A person of resolve. You know who you are, you know where you're going, and you're passing forward what you have learned from life. And on behalf of our listeners, I want to thank you, ReGina, for doing just that, for helping us to overcome what we are going through, because you've been through it and you are passing on the benefits of life. Thank you so much for sharing.
No problem. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on your show. I do appreciate it. Thank you both.
How would you respond to the question, who are you? Another way of asking that question is, what do you do? We're frequently programmed to respond to those type questions by telling people our occupation, our degree, something of that nature. But really, who are you? What are your character values? What is your basic makeup? How are you wired? I'm interested in knowing exactly who you are. That is, a person of integrity. Are you a quiet person? What are your aspirations? What is it you hope to do? When it comes to total life fulfillment and satisfaction, how are you wired? That is, what really brings you satisfaction? And there's some people who either don't know, or, as ReGina responded, she lived nearly 5 decades of her life living somewhat of a facade, She held a lot of things in. She wasn't sure who she was. She felt abandoned because of adoption. But there are a lot of us who are holding things in, that we bottle things up. Don't feel like I am wanted. Don't feel that I'm accepted. I just am uncertain where I fit. I don't know what friends I have. There are any number of things that would cause us to feel we're just uncertain who we are. I want to appeal to you to live the life that God designed you to have, to live your full potential. I want to do what I can. Marty and I together want to help you live your designed purpose, to live that fulfilling life that we know you can have when you have a healthy amount of confidence, awareness, and when you know who you are and God's designed creation and the potential He has for you. There could be a calling in your life, or at least you know what it is that is a life purpose for you. It's difficult to define the life purpose, and I understand that. There are a lot of us where we just need to put a life on a pause, so to speak, to determine our purpose, who we are, what we're about, and when we define those things, allow God to work through our lives to help us to be the greatest potential that He designed for us. Some people need coaching. Everybody can benefit from a life coach. A life coach is a person who helps identify and work through any challenges that we have that are in the subconscious, that when provoked, when thoughts make us think about different things, can be determinants, can be dominant in our life to cause us to live other than what God's design purpose is in our life. I hope you'll call Marty, me, and arrange a complimentary 30-minute coaching session to help you determine if we would be the right person to help you live your God-designed potential by helping to identify anything that can help you to be the person God created you to be. Contact us at ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, at thecooperculture.com. Let's schedule a 30-minute complimentary coaching session that can help you determine if Marty or I is the right person to help you become God's very best to live your full potential. We hope we can warrant a 5-star rating from this podcast series. We hope you'll want to subscribe. We hope you'll engage us in conversation to let us know what has worked with you, what challenges maybe you have in working with other people. Let's engage in conversation. The more we engage, the greater benefit we will be to others, the greater value we can be to others who may be experiencing some of the things we either are experiencing or have overcome. The greater outreach we have to each other by sharing what has worked, what has not worked as well, the greater benefit we will be to others to help advance them to the greatest potential that God has designed every one of us to be. We hope we have the opportunity to work with you. Let's share. Let's comment with each other. The more we share, the greater the benefit we will be to others. We look forward to working with you.